This is a real quick leadership podcast, and what I want to talk to you about today is a leadership principle called gaps and overlaps. And it's just a really basic principle. And let's say that you wanted to paint a room. Let's say you had a wall that you wanted to paint, right? And let's say that you hired 3 or 4 people to paint this wall, and you gave them each a roller and paint, and you said, okay, I want you to paint this wall. And so the first person goes and paints like this, right? And then the next person goes and they paint like this. And then the next person goes and paints like this. And the next person goes and paints like this. You would not be happy with the results. I mean, you're applying the same amount of paint, but it's not getting painted. And the reason it's not getting painted is because you have what I call gaps and overlaps. Gaps are areas that are of the wall that are not being covered, and overlaps are places where you're really putting way too much paint than you should. And this is a leadership principle because if you're in an organization, it is very important that anybody that's doing a task for an organization or doing several tasks for an organization, that they get together and they plan what lane am I in? What tasks am I responsible for, and what tasks am I not responsible for, and then are we getting all the tasks covered? I mean, that's basically kind of what gaps and overlaps is. It's basically sitting down, trying to find out what is the problem we're trying to solve, and then who's going to do what to solve this problem. Because if there's gaps, you run into a problem that there may be some things that should get done, but nobody's doing them. And most people... if you tell them this is the task I want you to do, they'll go out and they'll do that task, and they'll be very happy about that task. And they won't really concentrate on anybody else's task because they're assuming somebody else is kind of covering all the other gaps. But you need to, as a group or as an organization, sit down and ask yourself, are there gaps? Are there things that we're not covering? And then you might want to reorient people to make sure you got somebody covering each of the gaps. And that's the gaps. Now, the worst thing is when there's overlaps, where you might have 2 or 3 people, and each of them think that they're responsible for a certain part of the task. And so the first person puts down a layer of paint, and then the second person comes down and puts another layer of paint just on top of it. Now, what is this? This is a horrible problem. First of all, it's a complete misuse of paint or of resources. But secondly, the first person's going to get really upset that you painted over their wall with your own paint. Why? Didn't I do it right? Or what's going on here? Or the second person might get upset and, I'm about ready to paint this wall, but it's already painted. What's going on here? So the overlaps are just as problematic, maybe even more problematic, because the overlaps are really where you can cause a lot of people to get angry and upset with each other. And so it is worth sitting down and just saying, okay, I want you to paint the top fourth, and then I want the other person to paint the middle, and you divide it up and you give each person their lane, and they do it, and there's no overlaps and there's no gaps, and things get done. And that gets done. I'm sure you've seen it before. Every organization has one. They call it, right, an organizational chart, where you identify tasks or people, and you give each one of those people responsibilities. You tell them, these are the things that I want you to cover. These people get together. They say, okay, this is the task we're gonna do. And do we have everything covered? And you're going to cover this, you're going to cover this, you're going to cover this. And we're going to come back together and we're going to see a beautiful painted wall because we each took, part of the task, a part of the wall, and we painted over it. If you do not have an organizational chart, you're very foolish. If you do not have kind of job descriptions for each of the tasks that needs to get done, or each of the people that are doing the tasks, you're very foolish. If you do not sit down before any major event or before anything that you're doing with the leadership or with the people that are going to be doing the work, and sit down and define the lanes very clearly, you're very foolish, because you're setting yourself up to make sure that things don't get done, or that you may have more than one person doing the same task, which is very bad. It causes all sorts of frictions and problems. Make sure that you have no gaps or overlaps. Set down in advance, plan out the work, everybody does their work, everybody's clear on the work, and the work will get done. So that's just a real quick leadership principle, And thanks for so much.